Give us another minute or two, and then just so that we know that everyone's here, can you do a roll call for us?
Sure.
For attendance? Thanks.
Yes.
Incidentally, the audio sounds great.
Good morning, this is Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa.
Morning, Lisa.
Hello.
I'm gonna wait just a couple more minutes see if there's any more beeps, and then I'll have Peggy do a attendance roll call so that we have it for the record.
Okay.
I don't know if any of you are looking at email, but I'm about to send you a little cartoon, which I hope will add a little humor to the day. If you see what I was wearing, you'd have a lot of humor. You notice that word? Not a word. Sorry, if we have to do this again next time, maybe we should Skype, and then everybody could do a pajama day.
I have a Zoom, a meeting by Zoom after this one, so I knew I had to be ready.
No,
My secretary was working from home last week, and I see her online really early, and so I sent her a message. I said, "Nice to see you're up and working on the computer, but you know, you probably should put some clothes on before you."
That's good.
She goes, "Jesus Christ."
And I did a Zoom meeting with Billy Smith for what's it called, telemed. It's kind of interesting.
Well, we're 3 minutes into it. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And Peggy, would you go ahead with the roll call, please?
Sure. Ed?
Here.
Rob?
You say Rob?
Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Kent?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Greg? Oh, that might be him. Paul?
Here.
Bill?
I'm here.
Lisa? Present? Christine? Here. Dave?
And Chairman Dave's here.
Did you want me to do staff as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, Don?
He's here.
Dave? Zenbeck?
Yep, I'm here.
Penny? Lyle?
I'm here.
Roy? I'm not sure if she was gonna join, so. Jay?
Yes, I'm here.
Marshall?
Here?
And is Joe Russell on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and did Greg join?
Hello.
Greg, are you on the line? Okay, yes, that's it.
Okay. Well, first off, you know, in these trying times, thank you everyone for doing this. We just felt we had a few things that we really needed to, you know, confirm. I know there are a lot of emails been going back and forth, and we just wanted to, you know, go over this. And what I'd like to do even though that we're allowed to do this, we'll take a couple votes today at our next meeting where we're all sitting together. These resolutions, I'm going to bring them up again so that, you know, we can confirm our vote today. Just so that we're going forward and we don't get hammered by anybody for doing what we're doing. We have resolution number 0402-2020.01. By the way, this is the Jefferson County Local Development Corporation April meeting via conference call for the record. So with this resolution, I'll read it. Whereas due to recent COVID-19 pandemic, staff recommends board approval to forego principal and interest payments for 90 days effective immediately for all revolving loans, and now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Jefferson County Local Development Corporation that it hereby approves the recommendation, and be it further resolved that the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and or chief executive officer are authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the purpose of this resolution. And could I, for further discussion, have a motion in a second? Please state your name.
Paul Warnick, yes. I'll move it for discussion. Greg Gardner, second.
Thank you. Open for discussion.
Is this revolving loans on the LDC books or the revolving loans that were on the IDA books?
This is on the LDC.
Okay, so that's, I assume so, sure.
We will have one for the IDA right after.
Yeah, I saw that. It just, the ones on the LDC books, I don't think they seem to ever really be called revolving loans. I guess that's the right term for them. Why are we making it automatic? Shouldn't it be a business that requires this? The original concept was we pre-approve up to 90 days for businesses in needs. And then they say, look, we're going to be behind, and they already have pre-approval to not pay, versus maybe some of these companies can continue to pay principal or interest, just like, I mean, the next resolution, I see we reworded it. Ms. Weber only asked to forego interest payments. We're going to give her principal and interest. I don't understand why we're making this automatic.
I believe Lisa's original request was to forego principal and interest payments.
Well, that's what I recall, and I actually printed up the March 12th letter from Lisa, and to wit, on the existing loan, let's see, I propose continuing paying interest on the loan and extend the loan at the end of the month. So, I mean, she is in writing, asked for something, and we want to give something else. I'm not opposed to the overall concept. I'm just wondering why we decided we just want to stop collecting money automatically.
Well, we haven't. I think the original plan was we would do it only for those who asked for it. They didn't
Okay, but this resolution doesn't say that. That's my only thing, is I'm reading the plain English. This says we immediately forego principal and interest on all loans immediately. It should have some words in there for businesses that apply for this. There's got to be like another step. Unless you're collecting money.
I guess maybe we just had a sentence in there.
I'll let the rest of the board speak. I'll tell you, me personally, that's my only concern. Some of these businesses, I think, can continue to pay. They have some fiscal restraint. There's a lot that are in need. And don't get me wrong, there's probably 80% of the businesses are going to need this. But the ones that can continue to pay, why should we say to stop paying? Because I think self-preservation of our agency, I did some quick counts. If we went everything, we'd be giving up $50,000 a month in principal and interest. I don't know that we could weather spending $150K.
This is Paul. I have a question for Lyle. I'm looking at the Jefferson County LDC receivables as of February 29th. Are we are those the ones under the LDC we're talking about? There's like,
the
7 or 8.
the receivables on the LTC as of March 30th, $589,297.
That's the total balance.
That's the total accounts receivable balance for the LDC of March 30th.
So just real quickly, this resolution will affect Jay Casimir, Current Apps, LCO Destiny, the Lodgedives, and two WIC LDC loans, one for Jane and I don't know.
Well, so far, the only one on that list who has requested the extension is Jay Canzanier. No one else there that requested it. Oh, I'm sorry,
So I tend to agree with Rob, and I think I said an email. I have no problems with anyone that's facing financial issues to do this 90-day thing. But I think it should be as simple as making a request. So we have something in writing that they've made the request and we're waiving it. I just don't think it makes sense to waive them all automatically.
Can we,
So
can we put it, this is Dave, can we put in another sentence that states, upon request and approval of staff, so that staff doesn't have to come back to the board for each one?
I'm perfectly fine with that, because convening another board meeting seems to be perfectly in task anyway.
Well, then I would move that we amend the resolution to authorize staff upon request from,
I would put written request.
staff has the ability to grant the 90-day extension or waiver.
Yeah, just, I would add in Dave's converse, I would add in written request if you didn't actually say that word.
That's fine.
This is Chris.
Is it, written request could be through an email or whatever, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we have it on record.
It's something that it wasn't like a phone record between Don and person A, then Don has to make the, the written thing that, just let the applicant actually just put a written request, and they can initiate a phone call, and then just say, please send me an email, and we can make this happen.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Sorry, Chris.
That's okay. What we've been doing is requiring an impact statement. We do have a deferment form on our website that we created, and we're having applicants or borrowers go to that form and fill it out for us, and then it comes directly to an email, so then we process them. But an email also would satisfy that written requirement, whatever way you want to do it. We don't have that many under the LDC, so I don't know that we really need to go to the extent of creating a form.
I agree.
People I've talked with so far, that's what I told them. Send me an email requesting the extension.
Perfect. Yep. I think that's, when I read this resolution, it appears that in plain English, it does say everything's suspended, and I didn't think that would be necessarily the intention.
I like the idea, Chris's idea. How about we combine the two, a simple email, but just a brief impact statement, a brief, can be 2 paragraphs or a simple paragraph, stating a little more specific, whether it's loss of revenue, whether it's physical damage to the plant, whatever, loss of employees, whatever.
Just
But
how they
I would also add to suggest that leave that to Lyle and staff to determine if the impact statement is suitable or not.
Sure.
agree.
Sure. Yep. That's no
If
problem.
it gets too complicated, nothing will ever work. We don't want to become big government.
We have an amendment that
But I go back, we're one of the things we're gonna approve is a loan, but I go back to their brief, Thousand Island Tours, their brief description of why they need that loan. And, to me, that's completely acceptable. You know, it's very brief. It's just a couple of short paragraphs and it sums everything up and gives you a clear picture as to what the project is all about.
Ed, it brings up another interesting point, and while I'm not sure if you've researched this, but eventually there may be some relief for our agency. I'm not really certain there seems to be all sort of federal relief programs that pop up every day. We've actually in our business been keeping track of all the administrative and loss of business time relative to this pandemic. So if we can make a claim, so this actually, if there's, you know, at least an email you can keep, hey, this is an impact because of the pandemic. We can kind of keep it off to the side, and at some point, if there is more relief, we can talk to what we'll say the intelligent parties that can help us find that relief if it so exists. And we may actually be able to get some payback as well.
And I'd take that one step further and just reference that over to the working group, the economic working group, to advise everybody to make that part of their criteria, you know, because we don't know what may come out of the federal government and state government for some economic benefit or compensation. So yeah, it's like keep your diaries effective immediately. Start tracking your loss of employees, loss of revenue, you know, all of those things.
Anything else on the resolution?
No, I would just add them, just supporting your line of thinking, this is Dave Bembeck. I was speaking to one of our local business supplements for the whole essential business designation. They basically said, I don't need to defer my loans, I just keep operating. So businesses would prefer to keep paying. But I agree, most of them need help.
Yeah.
Okay, on the
I think that's a
resolution.
good. Okay, go ahead. Yep.
Go ahead, Ed.
Roll call vote, right? Am I the first one? Yeah. No, I'm not. All right. No. All right. I was just going to add this. That's a good. I feel very good. That's a good amendment. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, ready for roll call? Roll call vote, yes.
Okay, Dave,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa, yes, and Chris.
Yes.
Resolution carries. Thank you, everyone. We have resolution 0402-2020.02. It's a resolution authorizing revolving loan to Clayton Islands Tours. Whereas Clayton Island Tours has requested a loan in the amount of $40,000 to be used for repair, flood damage, and to prevent future damage. And whereas staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval of a revolving loan in the amount of $40,000. Staff recommendation for the loan to be advanced on a demand note bearing interest only for 12 months or for a term to match receipt of the grant. Subsequent to the receipt of the grant, the balance will be termed out for 5 years at 5%. Collateral will be a personal guarantee of David K. and lien on the assets of the business. Staff does not recommend the loan be contingent upon approval of a resilient grant. And whereas due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the loan review committee was bypassed and the request was moved directly to the full board of directors for consideration. And now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Jefferson County Local Development Corporation that it herein approve the request for a $40,000 loan to Clayton Island Tours with all terms and conditions as set forth in this resolution, and be it further resolved that the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and/or chief executive officer are authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the purpose of this resolution. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll move on. The discussion, I'll move. Whichever is dominating.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion.
I have a question, since, I guess another uncharted territory, we really have no idea how long it's gonna take for these grants to be received. And this won't affect anything other than just where we say bearing interest only for 12 months or for a term to match receipt of grant. Should we add in whichever occurs first or whichever occurs later? There needs to be sort of a sunset period, or do we want to lock in interest only for 12 months, or if the grant took 24 months? Because the next sentence says subsequent to receive the grant, and hopefully that makes sense of what I'm trying to explain.
I think if we leave it interest only for 12 months, and if something happens, the grant does not come through in 12 months, then we can relook at it.
Okay, so I would just get rid of or for a term to match the receipt of the grant. So interest only, that's what I was trying to get at. If you want to just be interest only for 12 months.
But if the grant comes through within 6 months, then that's the term of the grant.
So it should say,
sooner.
or term to match receipt of the grant, whichever occurs first.
Okay.
But I'm just adding in something there.
So my question is, it's a little vague in the resolution. My question is, whatever monies come in from the grant will be directly applied to the principal balance of the $40,000 loan? Is that the way I understand it?
That's the way this works. That we just did this on, North Ranch Farms, if you recall.
Right.
Yeah. So nobody else, I mean, we'll be in first, I was going to say we'll be in first position, but that's not a good term. In other words, the money can be used, the revenue derived from the grant back to Thousand Island Tours can't be used for anything other than to repay the principal balances. That's the way I understand it.
It can, yes.
Okay. All right.
This is off when you get a second. Has, Mr. K been approved for the resiliency grant yet? I wasn't the impression he had approval.
Let me bring the board up to speed a little bit on this entire question. Dave has obviously submitted his formal application. The application has been accepted. The ready staff has reviewed it. They found a couple of issues they want to resolve. Last we knew, they have not had official approval, although it certainly sounded like the discussions we've had with Dave and the staff in Albany, they will approve it. It's not formally done. The reason for that, of course, is the COVID-19 mess came in the middle of this. But a couple of issues that remain unsettled, frankly. The way the original program was established, the governor insisted on having a local match of 5%. You all remember that, and we had a discussion about how we could contribute based on what the county was looking for us to do, how we could provide that 5% grant. And part of that, of course, was savings on loan details and legal work and any other thing we could figure out how to incorporate, and the possibility of doing a lease-back where the sales tax implications would also be used in the 5% calculation. All of this remained completely up in the air. I've tried several times to talk with the staff at the Ready Grant Program. I have sent emails to Molly Riley, who is responsible for this program, and it is because of the Corbett thing, it's completely up in the air. So at the moment, we find ourselves in a situation where Dave Kay and others along the river are making decisions based on the prayer, the hope that these grants will come forward. Water levels and so on are such at the moment, they are going ahead with a lot of these projects, making an assumption they're going to be approved. And we've tried to get some kind of an indication from the folks in Albany if the applications appear to be in pretty good shape, they would likely receive the grant. And that's frankly what staff is saying they probably will. However, this is all very much in the air. There's nothing official, nothing has been carved in granite yet, except that Dave and there are others along the river need this money to move ahead. So we're in a tough position with respect to this, because, for example, and I think Joe would confirm this, we have legal requirements if we're going to do a leaseback, for example, and we're not in a position yet to do that. And so here we are, we're kind of moving on faith in the hopes that this will all come together. But I just want the board to be aware, a lot of loose ends on this one.
So will our waiving of the interest be considered a municipal addition for that first year? Or
Yes.
an interest? So
Yeah, I think that would be considered fine. Our discussions with them, we've tried to frame it that anything we can forego, any charges, any costs, whatever, would be used in that calculation. So I think the answer is yes.
okay. Very good.
You know, at the end of the day, though, I would hope that 5%, whether it's allowed or disallowed, whatever categories we're hoping to get covered under that, at the end of the day, it should not be a game changer to moving those grants forward. I mean, I can't think of any business, a worst case scenario that couldn't come up with a 5% for, you know, contributions to receive the other, you know, remaining amount. Granted, every bit helps, but still, it shouldn't stop a project from moving forward, no matter what they allow or disallow.
This new economic committee should be having a discussion of trying to get the state to waive that to help jumpstart some of these things that will create some investment in businesses. That might be something for this new committee to try to get on top of and convince the governor to waive that.
Well, it's certainly something that could be discussed, Paul, and you're right. There are so many emergency situations. We'll talk about some of those here in a bit, but the community has its hands full with so many of these things. We can't, for example, one of the details, and I don't want to get too off in the weeds on this thing, but the question comes, if we can only calculate 4.3% savings, for example, as the local contribution, does that necessarily mean the project stopped? And I can't get an answer to that question. I've asked, you know, if we come up with 4.3 and Mr. K decides to contribute more to his project, you know, making it a full 5% contribution, does that qualify as a local government match? I can't even get that information. So, you know, we'll work our way through these details for sure, but right now the water is pretty much, and how we're going to do this, I don't know. Right now, I can tell you, the focus in Albany is not on any of this stuff. It's on trying to plug a hole in the dike the size of Manhattan. And exactly where it's going to come out, I'm not entirely sure. I think we have to work on faith. I think Dave Kay is an excellent local business person. I think at the end of the day, he contributes majorly to our local economy, as do others up there. And I hope we would take this as a standalone. When worst comes to worst, we just dismiss the whole notion about matching this thing up with a ready grant and just lend him the money, because he's A, good for it, B, it's critical for that community and for him and the employees up there to go forward. So that's my point.
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. On the resolution, roll call vote, please.
Dave,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes, sorry, I had it on mute.
Kent,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa, yes, Chris,
Yes.
Resolution carries. Thank you, everyone. So then we have resolution 0402-2020.03, a resolution authorizing a modification to the revolving loan to LCO Destiny LLC. Whereas LCO Destiny LLC has requested a moratorium on principal and interest payments from March 20 to August 2020 on their loan that has a current balance of $88,906.80. And whereas staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval by the board, and now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Jefferson County Local Development Corporation that it herein approves the recommendation, and be it further resolved that the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and/or chief executive officer are authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the purpose of this resolution. Entertain a motion and a second, please.
Kent, make a motion.
Chris, second.
Discussion.
I brought this up a few minutes ago, the email that Don forwarded to add this on to our board action. In Lisa's own words, she's asking for a 6-month hiatus to continue paying interest, but she wants a suspension of principal only. So I'm not sure if we have mischaracterized the file. You said her original request, which I just can't seem to find, it sort of got lost and never went to loan review. We were supposed to move it to the full board and then we never had a meeting. I'm just going on this March 12th letter from Lisa asking for something different than what's on the resolution. So I kind of leave it if there was another request that says something different.
Well, I really don't know, Rob. I had no conversation, no contact with Lisa whatsoever. But when the request came to me, it was indicated that because of the loss of this major customer, that she would like a 6-month moratorium on principal and interest with a new maturity date. And so that's the way I told Peggy to put together the resolution.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at, I'm looking at again, Don actually just resent us the original email from March 12th from Lisa. Suspend principal, keep paying interest. I keep saying it backwards.
If it helps the board, let me just give you a little history here. We started this discussion with Lisa when her major client announced that they were going to discontinue any orders from Lisa's company, and it threw her into a major tailspin. As you know, she just before Christmas began laying off people, and it was a mess. And so, I called Lisa, and we spent time talking then. And over the next couple of months, we talked several times as she tried to adjust to the crisis she was facing at that point. We were just beginning to put some kind of a plan in place when the Corbett mess hit. And so what you're seeing is a request that occurred just before we were in a position to begin to discuss whether we we do interest and principal forgiveness and so on. So Lisa's request came in advance of that. She has done a number of things which I think indicate her commitment to paying off her loans. She's done, I think Lau will tell you, an amazing job of reducing those over the years. We've worked with Lisa, constantly for the last several years. So she's looking for help. She thinks she has a notion about how to repair the business and put it back on track. Her description of that sounds logical to me. There is no guarantee, and of course, this most recent event with the virus may change all of this. I don't know, but she's been good about repaying. She's been one of the children for the kind of development we can do here. So again, it's up to the board how you want to handle her request. I think she would appreciate anything we can do to help her. So that's a little background.
Here's my, this is Rob again, here's my simple workaround. We just passed a resolution allowing 3-month suspension of principal and interest if she sends an impact statement, which shouldn't be hard to do. So we either have her follow that, we scrap this resolution because she's covered under the other one, or what she asked for in writing was a 6-month suspension of principal only to keep paying interest. So I would offer those two options as doing what she put in writing or doing what we just resolved was good for every other business, to give her 6 months of suspension of principal and interest. Goes in the face of the resolution we just passed. I don't think we can treat one business differently than another.
Hey, this is Paul.
I would agree.
This is Paul. If we need to talk about the financial history of an individual or a corporation, we usually go into executive session, and I don't know how we could do it now. But, Don, you talked about her plans for redevelopment. I think it would be important for the board to hear all that, and I think that's something that would be subject to the freedom, us shut off the audio stream so we can hear the financial details of how she plans to restructure.
So, let me throw this out. Can I throw this out? What if we table this resolution at this time? We've just given her the ability to get 90 days, upon request. And hopefully by that time, we're sitting at a table again.
Yep.
And that way, if she needs more, then, I'm more than happy to entertain, what she might need at that point.
I'm going to just throw out the only loophole to that, and I'm willing to sort of overlook it. She was in trouble before this pandemic, so she can't actually use on the impact statement this pandemic is affecting her business. Her business is affected by external forces unrelated. And I think there's ways she can write her impact statement to say the next 90 days, whether or what the business or not, she's not been able to reorganize properly. I just want to put that out there for the board. This problem pre-existed. Don actually just said that, and this is pretty well known to our board. So she needs to be careful when she writes her impact statement. That's my only comment to her, and hopefully that's not meant to be critical or taken in any other manner. But we have to be careful on how these impact statements are written.
But I would expect, this is Ed, I would expect though that as she goes through that process within the next 90 days, if we do that, she is going to be able to justifiably show that in addition to circumstances prior to the corona outbreak, as of today, she's certainly probably going to have additional criteria that can demonstrate she's had additional financial challenges to the business as a result of the virus itself. So it's kind of like, before, during, and after. And she's had in the before, we're dealing with before, but now we're dealing with during, and that shouldn't, that's gonna come out onto the playing field for her analysis, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is Paul. If there's no discussion and David's recommendation of tabling, unless there's more discussion, I'd make that motion.
Do I have a second?
This is Greg, I second.
On table and roll call vote, Peggy, please.
Dave,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
Rob,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa, yes, Chris.
Yes,
Chris, you still there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dave,
Yes.
we just made a motion to table it, but we had a motion on the table. I'm not sure how we have two motions on the table at the same time.
Yeah, that's proper. Once you had a motion on the table, then we made a motion just to table the resolution, so.
Okay, we have to withdraw
Yeah.
our motion on. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep, we're fine.
Okay,
So, Don, we still have, the full board from the LDC here. We have one little issue for the IDA, and I would like, any discussion you need to have, let's do that now in case we have some LDC members that need to drop off.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Dave. Yes, there are some things I'd like to talk to the board about. It's pretty obvious to all of you that we are in a circumstance none of us have ever faced. It is further evident by all means that we have any number of our local businesses in dire straits, and I can't emphasize this enough. I have received call after call after call from business people trying to find salvation as we move through these circumstances. And they range from one or two employees, sometimes individual businesses with only one, up to and including some of the big guys, Car Freshener and New York Air Brake. And all of these businesses are struggling today to try to find a way through this and having a difficult time doing that. I have made some suggestions and I've invited board members to join us on essentially a little effort that we hope will resolve some of these things, and we're calling it our essentially fast response team here, and we're gathering folks to try to address this. It's called the Jefferson County Economic Development Response Team, and it consists of the people who cross the spectrum from political through education through whatever. And thus far, we've had a couple of meetings. We're still in the formative stages. But in addition to the formation of this activity, which, by the way, I need to say parenthetically, I hope does not become a political issue. We can't afford politics as usual in this type of thing. We need action, and we need it today. Otherwise, we're simply not going to come out of this in the kind of way we need to. So anyway, we have this organization, but once we get the organization formed, it's going to need some teeth. It's going to need some opportunities to present things to businesses. And Marsh has done a great job of collecting information from various federal, state, and local sources. You'll see it on our website. I hope you have a chance to take a look at that. It does identify those, but we need to go deeper than that. In my personal opinion, the local economic development organizations, the trust, thank us, ANCA, others need to step up to the plate and design something which can provide a shot of cash into these small businesses immediately so that they don't have to close the doors. And what we're talking about here and proposing, yesterday, the trust, at my urging, took action. They're willing to set aside some monies for use in some emergency loan or loan grant or grant program, yet to be determined as to how that is to be done. And yet all of the development organizations, such as ours, to throw into some pot of money, which could then be deployed by using this economic development response team and obviously approvals through the various local mechanisms. Binghamton just put together, for example, out of their LDC, a $350,000 pot of money where they offer loans of up to $15,000, no interest for companies under 50 employees. My initial thought was that this board would consider perhaps some type of a loan grant program. And thinking out loud here, this is all thinking out loud, a 25% grant and a 75% loan. And again, put some kind of numbers on it, maybe no principal interest for the first 6 months, maybe 3% for 2 years on the loan balance, and 5% for a balance of 5 years, or something. In other words, I think we have to be creative. I think we have to be in a position to put some resources at risk, whatever the board thinks is appropriate. But I think we've got to take these steps, and I think we have to do it quickly. We cannot. It can't be business as usual. I think the optics in the community right now is everyone is looking for the development organizations to step up and take the lead on this stuff. We're doing our best, but now we need some substance from the board. So I know this is a little unusual, certainly out of the box, not something we typically do. It's risky. I have no doubt about any of this, but yeah, I'll tell you something, if we don't take this risk, the risk is we're going to lose a number of our local businesses, some of whom owe us money. So we're going to lose it that way if we don't take steps to try to recover when this begins to turn the corner. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. There's some other things I want to talk about, Dave, but I think we need to have a discussion as to how this organization can be responsive in the face of this absolutely incredible mess.
So what are you proposing? I listened in for a while on the 2 conference calls where you had the chairman of the legislature. Is that the organization you're talking about, the recovery team?
Yeah. Yes, Paul.
Okay. I see the development agencies as a resource to that board or whatever you want to call it. And has the structure of that been set up yet? Because I know a couple names were thrown out as to lead that charge. And you talk about the policy. If we can make that board away from our entity, the trust, where that board makes recommendations back to the development agencies on what needs to be done, I think you could have a very good working organization, and then we could take their recommendations how to do just what you're talking about and where we go. But I agree, we need to know what we have to put on the line to support those efforts.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Paul. I put together a bit of a structure for this organization. They are talking right now, the chairman of the legislature, the mayor of the city are talking about identifying a prominent business person. Names have been mentioned already. That prominent business person would lead the charge on this response team. And as Paul just said, we, would be my view anyway, we, the trust, bank, and so on, would provide this entity with the resources to deploy these quickly and essentially try to stop the bleeding. Exactly how this is going to work out, I don't know yet. You know, we're still in the very formative stages, but
my reaction to the conference calls is you need a businessman from the service sector, some bankers, so you understand the money issue. And then they would tell us what they need. We need to be listening what that group needs, and then we find a mechanism to deliver what they say they need. And how we do that across banks, the trust, and us efficiently and in an expedient manner is what I think we need to be talking about. How we turn things around. There may be people who need money in 14 days. Or in reality, and how do we set our structure up with so we can legally funnel the resources they need in that expeditious manner? I think that's where my concern would be, is, you know, can we change our structure where the loan review committee can act on behalf of the entire board to expedite the process?
While that's going on, I agree with you, Paul, but one thing I would suggest as that's taking place is internally, a group from the board in conjunction with staff, sit down and start to identify, under worst case scenario, what pool of money do we have to put on the table when they come back with their recommendations?
If it helps, yesterday, the trust put, by vote, $1 million in a pot. And they are looking for others in the community to match that. I frankly think that's a little, that's a little extra money that we have, frankly, and I wouldn't recommend that amount, but I do think having something in a pot that, you know, we can then use as essentially a springboard, a loan program, loan grant program, something, and then offer that to this committee with whatever caveats you folks want to put on it. Again, the issue here is speed. These folks, in order for many of them to survive, they're going to have some help fairly quickly. And the optics are that it's all well and good that SBA and these others put in these federal and state programs. That's great, but I can tell you that A, it's not going to solve all of the problems, and B, it's a timely issue. These folks may not be able to survive until such time as these things are actually deployed. So how we do this, I don't have all the answers. That's a turn to you guys.
What's the restrictions on our IDA RLF fund?
Well, the legal restrictions, and Joe can weigh in on this, but the legal restrictions are it has to be an IDA project, pure and simple. This is what we got. This is what we got tangled up with in past with the comptroller's office. Now, I will tell you, discussions with state officials at the moment is almost all bets are off. I'm not sure.
We are working with the governor's office. My firm is trying to get the governor to sign an executive order allowing us to make loans during this crisis. That hasn't been signed yet, and we don't know if he will sign it, but that's in the works. But until that happens, sounds right. It has to be tied to the word we're getting is that money's going to get used up real quick because it's their national program. And it's going to be first come, first serve. And when the pot of money is gone.
Suggestions, could we suggest that the executive committee work with staff to come up with recommendations from the LDC and the IDA? Should an executive order be signed that we could make available to that fund that you're talking about has been created? And move this along. Let's make a determination of what resources, other than staff time, we have to make it. And let's get it underway to figure out what we can put in the pot to make it happen.
I support that. You're making a resolution, I'll second it.
This is Rob. I have one more thing that we brought up before, I think. I believe there's 6 other LDCs in the county. Have we approached the local LDCs to find out if they're willing to do something similar for projects in their locality so that our LDC isn't bearing the total brunt, if you will, that we work in partnership with localities?
That's an extremely good point, because I can tell you the last report I saw from the Sackets LDC is that they're sitting on $400,000 or $500,000 in cash. Okay? And if we get a request from the Sackets business, we should be looking to the Sackets LDC to step up to the plate in their service area. That's a very good point, Rob.
Just to confirm Rob's point, we have had discussions with a couple of the local LDCs, particularly naming Sackets. They called and said, how are you guys going to proceed? And if so, we want to be a part of that. So we have an indication from them that they're willing to throw cash on the table to put some money in a pot where we can use it as essentially an emergency fund. I don't know how else to approach it, except to say that people in the community are looking for us for leadership. They are counting on the fact that once the health issue is reached its zenith and started down, that we have some notion about how to control the economy, how to help the rebound, because there are going to be so many casualties no matter what we do. And we have to be, I personally believe, we have to be leading the charge. That's what we do. That's what people expect of us. And so I'm delighted to hear you guys willing to set something up to make, and I don't know what that something is yet. We're not there yet, but I'm pushing for some kind of a local commitment that can be used in concert with federal and state activities that will help these folks come out of this on the other side of this chasm we're looking at. So.
Don, I'd like to support wholeheartedly your comments regarding the LDC coming up with some sort of program. I know the Syracuse Economic Development Corp is laying out a $500,000 fund, 0 interest. So the LDCs definitely have to do it. It can't fall on the banks. The banks are going to be, well, we already are inundated with requests. And as you mentioned, those funds are going to dry up. Whether they'll be extended or additional funds will be made available, we don't know. But it is important, and I would wholly support our organization coming up with a program.
You know, Chris, I had a one man tell me once that if we expect the federal and state government to solve all the problems locally, we're going to be very disappointed. And, you know, frankly, my experience has been, although they're going to make some major efforts, we couldn't do it without them. We have to also find a way to help on the local level. And we have to expect a solution coming from the local folks to the extent that we can provide that. So I hope everybody's willing to do it. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like. The only thing I can say to you is as we approach this, I'll keep you folks via emails very up to speed as I've tried to do. I can't tell you every single phone call Dave Zembeck or Alexander or Lyle or Peggy or Jay or any of our staff take from all these people, but I can tell you we're getting them one after the other. I spend most of my day on the phone with small business people trying to figure out how they're going to survive. So
what are you telling them?
What am I telling you? Basically that we are working our butt off right now trying to design a program that can be responsive to their needs. And that's why we came up with the response team that I put together. I'm hoping that it doesn't take a long time for those of us to get this formulated, and then we can fast track response. And we can't turn this over to a committee who turns it over to a subcommittee who then turns it over to something else. and 6 months down the road, we get an answer. That's not gonna work. We gotta find a way to make it happen quickly.
This is Dave. So our LDC revolving loan fund savings account has somewhere around $1.5 million. Why don't we earmark 500,000 out of that with the idea that if we can get the other LDCs to kick in, we can get up to 750 or even maybe $1 million for this going forward.
I think you need to get the group together and find out, truly look at all the aspects and determine how much is out there. And if that requires us to get together again. So we have to make a firm decision on how much we really can put forward, keep the organization viable to assist these companies and businesses. I hate to just pull a number out there until we know. Maybe it'll be more, maybe it'll be less.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just, although we would love to be part of that program, we do not have any money. So Clayton will be out of that potential funding.
Dixon needs to funnel money through the local LDC. Clayton would be a player, wouldn't they?
If some funding came through, but looking at our financials, we really truly have $0.
Okay. I just think we need to get a global view of the entire operation, the LDC and the IDA, what type of resources we have to make available. I would assume, I would do it with the assumption that the governor is going to sign the executive order that Joe talked about. And if all we're going to do is get a little slap on the wrist, we may have to play a little out in the gray areas. Because surviving is more important than a couple of notes in an audit to me, Don.
Oh, I agree 100%. You know, I'd rather do the Maya Copas later on, because right now, we're seeing people who simply do not know what the ultimate is going to be, where we're going to end up. So if we start taking some actions, which in my view are, and your view are instrumental in keeping our community solid in terms of its economy, how the hell are they going to fight us? You know, what's the court going to say if we do stray into some of these gray areas? And I know that's probably under normal circumstances, I'd never say that. But boy, right now, talking to these people, I think we should. And Dave, if I might suggest, if for this discussion purpose only, if you were to, using your number of 500,000, if you would allow us to at least begin a discussion that says we would contribute to some type of a fund up to an amount of 500,000, we could then, we've already got a commitment of up to $1 million from the trust, but I think they'll back off and try to match what we do, and then go to Dank and go to Enka and the LDCs and everybody else and say, okay, here's where we are. We are expecting a contribution to this fund, and then see what the fund looks like. It's not a perfect solution. Obviously it's not. I just don't know what else to do in terms of expedition.
I would be willing to support that on the approval of the executive committee after you guys get together and look at the number. We're not going to be able to do this in this larger group to determine how much we can afford to put on the table. Let's leave that up to the executive committee and up to a $500,000 commitment upon approval of the executive committee. Because Rob, you're on the executive committee, aren't you?
So I think, yeah, John, Dave, and me.
I'd be comfortable letting that number go forward upon the consensus of the executive committee. That's what they're there to do, to make these quick and tough decisions, I think.
Is that a motion?
Man, that's all I'm doing today, Dave. For sure.
This is Rob. I'll second the motion.
Just to be clear, that was on the executive committee, but you also mentioned the executive order. You wanted both of those mentioned?
This is Paul. I think it should be upon approval of the executive committee that we would commit that money to this fund.
Yeah, we're talking, this is LDC, and the executive order I was talking about is going to pertain to the IDA, so.
Okay.
Yeah, this is LDC money.
Now, one question I want to make it clear. I want to make it be clear. This pool of money, as it's put on the table and then rolled out under certain criteria, is strictly going to be loans. Do I understand that right? This is not going to be grant programs. This is going to be a loan program at the end of the day.
And what is being talked about now, and I don't know what it would look like, that would ultimately be up to you guys. But at the moment, what is being talked about is a percentage would be a grant, and then a percentage, a larger percentage, would be a loan. And they can't take one without the other. So we might grant, 25% would be a grant of whatever the total loan is, and then 75% would be loaned and expected to be paid back. And I don't know what that loan piece would look like, whether it's interest-free, interest at 3%, interest accelerating over a 5-year, I don't know yet. But, these would be things that...
What I would ask, Don, and everyone, is that we don't get married into every agency having their own criteria. Whatever it is, the staff could get together with the trust and the development authority and anybody that's willing to put into this pot. Let's get one application procedure that goes over the process.
I agree, Dave. We have a motion and I think a second for the 500K. Staff is going to shape how this will be given out and match up with all the other local agencies. And there's a pot of money. Our contribution is 500,000. How it's given out, I agree. We shouldn't get in the middle of that minute right now.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Let me get back there. Hold on. Dave?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Lisa? Yes. Chris? Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
And Dave, this is Dave Zemek. Just to add just a little bit, because some of the questions that came up about broader strategy and what the businesses actually need. As part of this economic recovery team that Dan was talking about earlier, Justin was saying, one of the things that's going to be happening is that Greg is going to be working with Joel Loan up in college on doing, collecting data, doing this already getting assessment, trying to find out what, from the business community, what the priorities are going to be. Now, Greg, if you want to elaborate on that at all, but, there's going to be some figuring out what's actually needed out there, how we best deploy whatever we come up with for funds.
Yeah, we're hoping that survey goes out early next week and crunch that data. I've got some people I'm working with from SUNY Potsdam. We're going to take the data from the survey as well as a lot of other economic data that we can collect and try and put together essentially an economic model of what the damage looks like, what the damage is going to look like in the future, and then see if we can use that to drive some recommendations.
And just on a related note to this too, I do have a conference call we've organized for later this morning with the other lenders like NCA, Watertown Trust, the SBDC and the SBA fund. Primarily, starting to figure out how does these SBA funds going to work as the clarity comes out on that. and how it might be partner local development fund with what's available to the SBA. So more on that later as well.
Can I ask one more question? And Greg might be able to answer this. When we're talking about creating these funds are funds where we're going to look to this recovery team to make decisions how best to deploy the resources that they're given through agencies like our own, that possibly based upon the survey from the businesses that Greg and Joel are working on. So when we're talking about it, it's going to be this recovery team that's going to be deciding what's the best way, whether it's interest-free loans or grants, how to deploy the assets. Am I on the same page with, or is that the page we're on here?
This is Greg. My impression of the recovery team at this point, it's very much a pickup ball game. The whole group sort of came together. Don called a meeting, and everybody got together and agreed we wanted to go forward and have this team. But the only real specific action the team has said is to say, boy, we need a leader who's from the business community. And we asked Scott Gray and Smith to go talk to a specific person. So in my opinion right now, saying this recovery team is going to fill this very central leadership role, it could be, but I don't think that team is there yet.
Okay.
By the way,
if they do get there, Don, do you see this being part of their role? If this recovery team does get there?
In some way, yes. We need an overall community strategy, Paul, that rather than any one of us piecemealing some kind of an approach, a Band-Aid here and there, I don't see that. I see if we're going to be effective, we have to deploy this in some kind of strategic approach. And that's my hope the committee will take that as a mission. Exactly how that looks, as Greg says, we're still, I pull a lot of this stuff out of my head, so I don't know that it's going to fly. All I know is that I think we're putting together some of the best minds in the community, and we'll find a way to do that. And what I have intended as we develop this, that I keep you guys in the loop constantly. Here's where we are. Here's, we found a leader. We formed the following committees where, we're going to do this and that. But the problem that scares me, and I've said this to Mr. Converse earlier, is that we don't want this to become another impediment to finding ways to make this thing happen. We can't afford, in my personal view, to wait days, weeks, months, years trying to get this thing done. It's got to be done fairly quickly. And I know there's a risk in that. So work with this. As I say, folks like Greg, they're deep in this. Joel put together some stuff. I sent it out to you this morning, some of the initial reactions we're getting. And so we're building the car while we're trying to drive it down the road. And boy, I'll tell you, it's not any fun, but I don't know how else to do it. So I hope you guys will bear with me.
I just have one quick question for Jay, if possible.
Yes, sir.
You there, Jay? And we want a short answer. I hear we're now seeing agriculture farms dumping milk. Is that true?
Across the nation, yes.
Locally?
Yes.
Okay.
Every cooperative that I'm aware of is currently dumping milk.
I'll give you a quick answer, Paul, of the piggyback on Jay. The same thing that has happened in the petroleum, the oil industry is now moved right over into the dairy industry. The dairy industry is going to follow the same pattern as the oil industry because there is such a glut of milk, and now processing plants are shutting down. the shift, you know, bear in mind, 15% of the dairy industry had to be an export market. And those markets, you know, they're shiploads of dry powder milk and milk protein concentrate and surplus cheese. All those things have been, you know, moving offshore. And you back that up, and we're awash in milk. This country is awash in milk, just like the petroleum industry is awash in petroleum, crude oil right now on ships setting in the middle of harbors. They probably won't get unloaded for 60 days. So, yeah, I didn't think we'd see it. It's here. It's going to be another real blow to our local economy, because with tourism and now the dairy industry, it's like I didn't expect to see this happen, and I thought we'd be somewhat protected. There'd just be a shift from you know, commercial disappearance would be picked up from more of the retail stuff. But Jay's done a good job of his analysis, and it's going to carry over into the pork and the beef now. There's going to be major market disruptions coming down the pike in the food supply chain.
I emailed everybody this morning, and I have to urge a lot of caution with that document, and I think you'll understand why when you get a chance to read it. The criticism that I received from the farms and the ag professionals that have reviewed it is that they feel it's too conservative in our estimates. So when you read that document, please, again, be careful of its distribution. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please give me a call and I'll do the best I can. I didn't know if we were going to do staff reports this morning. I've been trying to figure out if we were to do that, where to start. I honestly don't know.
I didn't mean to it was just, I heard that the other day, and I drive past a good friend, and every time I leave my house, I have to go past their farm, and I can keep going there. So, thanks, Dave. Wish it was better news for agriculture.
For sure. You know, I thought that
different times.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, can we get to the next resolution? My business is actually still open. I've got to get going.
Anything else for the LDC? Or we'll adjourn the LDC meeting. Can I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Greg, so moved.
Chris,
Second.
Everybody, aye?
Aye.
Okay. With that, I'll call the order JCIDA meeting. And we have one resolution. Basically, it mirrors the one we did with the LDC. I have changed it a little bit, and I'll read it as I have it. We got resolution number 0402/2020.01. Whereas due to the recent COVID-19 pandemic, staff recommends board approval to the forego principal and interest payments for 90 days effective immediately for all revolving micro and city loans, and authorize staff to provide relief upon written request. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency that it herein approves the recommendation, and be it further resolved that the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and/or chief executive officer are authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the purpose of this resolution. With that, I entertain a motion and a second, please.
I'll move as modified this, Rob.
Bill Jennison, second.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Are you gonna stick around after this?
Roll call vote, please, Peggy.
Okay. Yeah, let's catch up.
Touch me.
Dave,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa. Yes.
Resolution carries. And that's all we have, unless, Dan, do you have anything else right now?
I have a couple of quick things, Dave. The
Okay.
business of the agency continues. For example, the Arsenal Street building, 146 Arsenal Street, the appraisal has been done. The letters have been submitted to the state. And so the timetable for the Y project, and God knows what's going on with that specifically, but we have started the clock now, and thanks to Joe and others, the letters have gone in, and that continues now to wend its way. We have had some issues with the building itself. Those are being maintained and taken care of. As you probably know, the county had identified the building as one backup facility, you know, a potential hospital if necessary. And we've done a little quick evaluation of what would be necessary for converting that building to some kind of an emergency response. And we have those items at least identified. From there, of course, it depends on what the governor decides to do through the county. Just one other quick point, the staff, I want to tell you, board members, they've been great. Working through this, we're trying to respond to 100, if not 300 different businesses who all have a particular crisis to face. They're looking for help. They want somebody to talk to about it, even though they know we may not have all of the answers. The staff has been just great trying to make this all happen, take those calls, work with the media, set up our websites, all, you know, as you've seen, Jay's been deeply involved in the ag business. All of us have tried to pitch in and make this thing work, and it's not easy doing it from the house. But that said, if the board thinks that they need more information or would prefer to do something in a different way or whatever, please let us know, and we'll do what we can to be responsive.
Don, I want to throw something out. I think the finest compliment you and staff, all the staff could have gotten came from Mark Thompson over at Jeff Concrete. When a gentleman like that stands up and references publicly that, you know what, you're my go-to source, people now. You're my number one go-to source. I don't think you could have got a more noteworthy compliment than that. So I piggyback Mark's appreciation for you and staff providing that kind of support to businesses like that.
Thank you, Ed. We appreciate it. We really do.
On the concentric building, Dad, I think in the very near future, that the Buildings and Grounds Committee has to, I question whether or not the schedule the Y has will be maintainable, you know, with their $4 million capital plan or capital fundraising they have to do, whether they're going to be able to meet it, and how long are we going to be able to continue to have the building maintain its current position? Is there a way to shutter the building for if this continues longer than expected? On the furniture issues, I know we talked about trying to sell the furnishings. You know, coming out of this, is there going to be any company looking to buy furnishings like that? Maybe it's time to just advertise it or do an auction through a place like Auctions International and try to get something out of it. I don't know. That is one of our major liabilities long term, because I question whether the Y will be able to meet their timeline now with what they're going through.
Well, I think you're right, Paul. I doubt very much they can, frankly. So it does change the dynamics. we haven't gotten in, frankly, I haven't really focused on that very much. We've had, so many other, things going on. I just wanted to let you know that it is out there. We are considering, we have talked to, some national furniture folks, who might very well be able to do something. We've talked a little bit to the county about what they may or may not want to do with a quarter of the building, which we still, have, in our portfolio. We've talked about, the possibility of marketing that quarter of the building, in some broader way through a real estate broker. All of these things are being discussed. I typically try to keep Kent as chairman of the building and grounds, and Dave is your chairman, up to speed on some of this, but my fault. I haven't had a chance to focus on it, but you're right about something.
It shouldn't be on the top of mind right now, but it's something that is going to come. We're entering a period of unknowns. Lyle, what has the building cost us since Concentric? We're spending how much a month, Lyle, on average?
Probably in the area of $30,000 a month.
And that's a lot of money to be taken out, and we should be looking. Maybe there's not a way to reduce that $30,000 a month, and we may be forced to make some.
Just to clarify, Rob, probably 10,000 of that is depreciation and insurance, and that's not going to go away. Well, I'm just guessing we're probably really spending 10 to 12 months. I came up with lower numbers, but it is hard money we may not need to spend.
Well, you're spending over $11,000 a month just for security.
Well, to me, why are we securing a building? It's a non-essential business. We got to make some hard decisions coming soon. We've got to think about self-preservation.
Yeah, and when I'm thinking about it, is the county going to be in a place to actually commit the resources to move the workplace now? There's a lot of unknowns there. I think it's something when you get some breathing room that has to be addressed on how to reduce our monthly costs, with that building moving forward. Because I would imagine we're probably 18 months to the Y being. I think you got to figure the Y is easily months and months beyond their proposed closing dates. And I'm not suggesting we take.
I'm going back to the purchase agreement. Refresh my memory, but was the closing of that property directly tied to the success or failure of their fundraising capital campaign?
There's a contingency, and first of all, we don't have a purchase contract yet. All we have is a letter of intent. I've spoken with their attorney at Bond, Shinnick & King last week. They're working on putting a contract together, which the board will have to formally approve once we receive it. But right now we don't have one. My recollection is the letter of intent does have a contingency in there to their success in fundraising and borrowing to get to the fund. And I think that it also indicates that if they pull out, their deposit is forfeited, so that we have that money to apply to our costs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
By the way, I love this. We're always, I'm trying not to forget any of this. Part of the expense we bear on a monthly basis stems from the fact that if we want to insure the building, which frankly I think we must, we have to do certain things. Otherwise, the insurance that we would have on it would be null and void. So it's not to say that we can't polish up how we do this, and we will. There's no question about it. This past couple of weeks have just been insane and changed the dynamics of virtually everything we're doing. But we haven't forgotten it, and to Paul's point, you got to look at this, as Rob said, at $30,000, $40,000 a month. It's money that we have to be very careful now about how we spend. So we'll look at this, we're gonna do the best we can to make sure that the money being spent is well spent. And if there's ways to compromise or think about that, please suggest them. I'm open to any thoughts you may have.
Hey, John, I have a question. Did the appraisal come in on target in the ballpark? No curves thrown with the appraisal? Did it come back as expected?
No. It was, no, it was, in my personal view, way off the mark. We even, Mr. Converse and Mr. Verno and I even talked about the possibility of going back to you guys and say we need another appraisal. In fact, I talked to another appraiser. The appraisal came, I don't have it in front of me, but I think the appraisal came back at 1.4 million as opposed to
or 1.5, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, really.
Our goal with the appraisal is to justify to the state that where we were compared to what the offer was. Why would we even worry about what another appraisal would be at this time?
And I agree with Paul, and I made this point to John. You've got an appraisal from a certified commercial appraiser that you can rely on. You don't have to worry about whether you agree with the number or not for the purposes that you have the appraisal done. In my opinion, you're entitled to rely on it, and if you disagree with it, that's fine, but Paul's right. We're using that as part of our justification for the sale.
Yeah, we took that advice. It actually
puts us in better shape.
Yeah. Yeah, so in one sense, we're in the weeds, but, yeah.
It puts us in better shape if we consider the impact on the state decision as to whether we made a good deal or not. But if, for example, that building becomes available back to the IDA for reasons we just talked about, why can't make it, or we have to sell a quarter of it, or whatever the case may be, that appraisal will impact what we have the ability to advertise for. So it's a double-edged sword. I just want you guys to be aware.
Point in time, you can get another appraisal if you want. You don't have to rely on that for that purpose.
That was exactly. By the way, we took Joe's advice on that, and we submitted that appraisal, got the letter going, and it made sense to me. I'm just thinking ahead of us, you know, what we might have to face, and it might require us, in my opinion, to consider another appraisal. We wouldn't do that, of course, without your input. That's it for me, Dave.
Okay, anyone have anything else they want to discuss this morning?
Everybody stay safe.
Everybody please stay safe, yes.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.
Paul, motion second to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I know it's tough, but I think it was very needed. We'll keep everybody up.